Okay, hi everybody. My name is Dave Halper, and I am with BrainAid.com. The company is Attention Control Systems, and what I'm here to talk to you about today is a cognitive orthotic planning tool called PEAT, the Planning and Execution Assistant and Trainer. We started off at NASA. Our founder was writing software for the Mars rover, which of course, so far away from home, has to be somewhat autonomous, and then realized that the software that he was writing mimicked human executive functions. So the company got spun off out of NASA, and PEAT was created. We help all sorts of different people, from people with Asperger's to brain injury, to dementia, to MS, anything that comes with a cognitive component to it. That's what we're about, helping people get through their day, and be as independent as possible. So there are many different cognitive disorders. I already listed a few of them. Here's a few more up here, including ADD and autism. There are more than 20 million in the U.S. if you include all those, and it's growing. Sort of regardless of the diagnosis or etiology or history, it's the symptomology that people are really trying and forced to deal with, right? And the effects of cognitive disorders is people get distracted easily, they can't plan well, they can have problems initiating activities, they can have problems with perseveration, right? Doing something beyond its usefulness. People have problems with general memory recall and impaired attention, and it all leads to lost independence, employment, and overall quality of life. The current age, even in this electronic age, still by and large is pencil and paper for people with, cognitive disorders and brain injury and so forth. They're carrying around day planners and whatnot. And more people are using electronic calendaring systems. More and more people are carrying smartphones which have calendars on them and places to store contact information and the like. But all these things are of limited effect. The paper and pencil is not going to, the notebook's not going to call to you from your backpack and let you know that you have to do something. You have to look it up. And then when you do, you have to go to the calendar to figure out what's going on. Then you may have to go to the contact list to look up somebody's name. And then you may have to go to another notes section to figure out, where you're going and remember what to bring and things like that. The electronic calendars and so forth, are happy to tell you that here's the, beep at you at 9 o'clock in the morning and say, here's the 19 things that you have to do. Also, your iPhone or whatever will beep at you for a little bit, but then it'll be quiet, and it's really up to you to look at it and see the notification that you have there. It's not very persistent, and if things change, you would have to make adjustments to the schedule. There's no automatic planning, and they really weren't designed for people with cognitive disorders, which means that the menu buttons can be confusing and overwhelming, and therefore difficult to use. So when PEAT came along, its goal is to address these issues, and it is a handheld cognitive aid. It's software running on a handheld computer or smartphone. It has automatic planning and queuing. It has floating tasks and scripts, and we will be seeing examples of these when I get to the live demonstration. And it has a specialized user interface that is designed specifically for people with cognitive disabilities. In a nutshell, PEAT provides flexibility, right, in the real world. It's with you 24/7, acting as your personal assistant, and has a customized user interface designed not to confuse or overwhelm people with cognitive disabilities. Now, PEAT is not your beeping watch. It's not just something that you kind of pull out of the box and set a time on and away it goes. It's more like a toolbox of things that you can use to cue the person. Now, really, in a nutshell, I guess, PEAT is all about cueing somebody at the appropriate time and in the appropriate way to begin or end an activity, and also to give them easy access to information that they might need to get that activity accomplished, right? Because it's one thing to tell somebody it's time to go to a speech appointment, but it's another thing to, remind them where it is and the phone number of the person they're meeting with and the name of the person they're meeting with and maybe directions and anything else that they might need. So here are some of the different tools in the toolbox. There are some activity types like fixed activities, right? You have to be somewhere at a certain time because you're meeting somebody or something is happening, at a particular time. There are floating activities where you're doing it by yourself essentially, and you can choose when to do it, like going shopping or reading the paper or taking a walk or, even exercising. And speaking of exercising, maybe you want to exercise for an hour, but you don't want to skip it if you have at least 20 minutes to do it. If it's less than 20 minutes, maybe it's not worth it for you to, get into the routine. And you can set up shrinking activities to fit exactly that purpose. There are also scripts so that you can take any activity and break it down into its component parts, such as doing the laundry or even making a meal, or potentially for somebody who's pretty impaired, it could be very simple activities of daily living, such as getting dressed and going through the bathroom routine. You can have choices, so somebody can make a choice and then be cued through that activity. There are checklists, which are kind of like passive scripts, and you can look at the checklist and you can put your check marks on there as you go through things, or potentially shopping lists or stuff like that, and put check marks on and off and so forth. And then there's even to-do items where they're not getting cued, but they sit on your calendar and you can look at them and mark them off when you're ready to mark them off. Along with the different types of activities, there's also how you cue somebody. You can cue at the beginning or end of an activity, and what type of sound to make, and there's a whole bunch of built-in sounds, and you'll hear some of them when we do the demo, as well as voice recordings, but really you can go out and get your own wave files, and you can even have it not make noise, but have items on the calendar that don't, at a certain time that don't cue. There's also a wait button and other cue overrides, such as doing something early or skipping or marking something as already done. And the beauty of PEAT is that any option can be turned off. so that the system is customized to just what the person needs at that point. And if they're at the beginning of training, say, you would start with, you know, just a subset of the items turned on, and when the person gets used to using that, then more gets turned on for them. And depending upon the wherewithal of the individual, they might actually be doing this themselves. The people who are mildly impaired can actually go through and do self-training. The people who are more impaired would have a therapist or family member or caregiver or AT specialist help them in setting things up, and they can you know, do what they can. And for the severely impaired people, they may just simply be responding to the cues and not making any adjustments, you know, but taking care of things and following a script or something of the sort. We also have names and note cards, right, your Rolodex and notebook, as well as other ancillary information such as pictures, sounds, voice recordings, locations, phone numbers, and they can all be linked to each other and linked to activities as well. And again, we will actually see a demonstration of all of this in just a moment. But before we do, I wanted to point out one of the features of PEAT, and this is unique to PEAT, which is floating tasks. And, you know, again, this is something where you get to do something within a time window, and maybe you don't get to decide the time window, but you know, you have an option of when to do something within a particular time window. And sometimes you get to choose the time window yourself. It depends. Maybe you have a lunch window at work, and maybe you know, or maybe it's something like you want to read the paper or whatever, where you can really give it whatever time window you need. So I'm going to give a little visual demonstration of this. And here we have a lunch activity, which is a 30-minute activity in a 2-hour window from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And when there's nothing else on the calendar and we schedule lunch, it's going to be scheduled from 1 to 1:30. But given that the window is all the way up to 3, we could really start lunch as late as 2:30 and still get done by the 3 p.m. deadline. Let's add another activity in there, and this second activity is our take a walk, and this has a time window of 1.5 hours, starting at the same time as lunch, 1 o'clock, and going to 2:30, and this is a 45-minute activity. Now, there are also priorities, which is how important an activity is, and if we look at this, we can see that lunch is more important than taking a walk. And so even though both of their time windows start at 1 p.m., take a walk has to take a walk, because lunch is more important. So take a walk gets shifted past lunch and will start now at 1:30, and that's fine because it still gets done at 2:15, which is before its 2:30 deadline. Not a problem. Now we're going to add in another activity, and this is a doctor appointment. And this we're going to notice two things about this activity. The first is that it's a 30-minute activity in a 30-minute window from 1 to 1:30, and that's essentially true of appointments and things where you're meeting with somebody and you just have to show up at that time, and it can't slip around without you saying, okay, this appointment is being shifted. And again, its time window is the same time window. The start is the same time as the other two activities, 1 o'clock. The second thing that we will see here is that this is a priority 1, our first priority and highest priority. And so what happens is the other 2 activities, which are priority 2 and 3, lunch and take a walk respectively, have to get shifted over. And so now lunch goes from 1:30 to 2, which stays within its time window, but take a walk now gets shifted from what would be 2 to 2:45, and that would go outside its deadline, and we would get notified as soon as we put in the doctor activity into the calendar that take a walk is not going to be able to be completed by its deadline, and it will get canceled, and it will not get queued. It actually still stays in the calendar, so you can see that it's canceled and that it's there. And often you would want to do something whenever you get notified that it's a cancellation. You know, it's because you tried to double book yourself essentially, or you ran beyond a deadline that you had set for a floating activity, and you'd want to take care of it in most cases. Potentially something like take a walk could be an expendable activity where, okay, today I don't have time because I've got too much going on for it. But otherwise, mostly you'd want to say, oh, let's just schedule something else or move an appointment around. And perhaps we actually said, you know what, even though we want to take a walk for 45 minutes, as long as we can walk for 15 minutes, don't cancel it on us. And here we still have a window that's open until 2:30. So we can set it to automatically shrink, and then it would shrink down to the 30 minutes that it has, and we would get queued to go for a walk for 30 minutes. So hopefully this made sense. I am going to just go through one more small demonstration, and in fact this static demonstration is going to mirror the actual live demonstration of PEAT that we're going to see in a moment here. And what we have in this calendar is the bank activity running from 12:30 to 12:40, and then the lunch from 12:40 to 1:20, and then shopping is from 1:20 to 1:55. Now there's only 5 minutes between the end of shopping and the movie with Susan, which is scheduled from 2 to 4, and then followed by exercise 4 to 5 and dinner 6 to 7 p.m. And I am kind of talking through this a bit just in case there's people who can't see it very well. So this is a pretty busy day here, and whereas we might have control over when we go shopping and when we exercise and so forth, if we get delayed at the bank or lunch, we're not going to be able to go shopping before the movie, because the movie is a fixed time, and we would have to go shopping after the movie. But to ask somebody who is cognitively impaired to prospectively plan the rest of their day when they're at the bank and they just ran late at the bank, you know, it might not happen. And if it did, they would have to take out either their notebook or their you know, PDA or smartphone and change the times for the other activities, or they'd be getting queued at the wrong times for the rest of this day. And granted that not everybody's going to have a busy day like this, but if there are things that run into one another, and as we all know, things don't always happen as planned during the day, you know, they're on their own to do something about it. Whereas with PEAT, you know, if they get to the end of the bank and they're not ready, they can hit the wait button. They're still standing on line at the bank, and they can say, oh, you know, I want to wait 15 minutes, right? Now we can see on the right that the bank is delayed until 12:55, therefore lunch now ends at 1:35, which is not enough time to go shopping before the movie. But since we told PEAT that the store's open until 5:30. It moves it till after the movie, and then exercise, which is a lower priority than shopping. We go to the gym, and that ends at 5:30 as well, and we can even see that it shrunk down the exercise, which earlier was 4 to 5 for an hour, now is 4:35 to 5:30 for 55 minutes, because the gym closes at 5:30 as well. Probably this whole mall closes where all these activities are happening, one right after the other. So to close this part, PEAT is all about increased independence, increased quality of life, and to varying degrees decreased cost of care. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to exit out of this. And I'm going to start the live PEAT, but I wanted to just see if, does anybody have any questions at this point? You can hit your, I guess, hit your button, or everybody seems to be good. I don't see any people jumping up saying that they need any further explanation. But at this point, I can see the moderator bar on the left. So if people do have questions and you type it into your chat window, I should see that pop up, because whatever it is that was dealing with the PowerPoint in full screen mode, it wouldn't let me see that. So now at least I feel a little more comfortable that if somebody has a problem, I'll be able to tell. So this is PEAT, and I hope people can see this well. I know it's a little bit smaller than the PowerPoint presentation. So it looks essentially the same on the handheld computer as it does on the screen, because it is basically the same program, and you can transfer the data back and forth if you either want to have a backup on the PC or be able to work on the PC and put in a bunch of data using the full keyboard and then transferring it back to the handheld. PEAT kind of mimics a memory notebook, and in fact it has a place for calendar, names, and notes and so forth. And I'm going to load up some demonstration data here. So we can see here is the calendar section. I was talking before about to-do items that are just there unqueued. Then here's the schedule, and this should look a little familiar, right? We didn't see before wake up and breakfast, which are already done earlier in the day. And in this demonstration mode, the time right now is 12:29, and at 8 o'clock, 8 to 8:02, wake up was finished, and 9 to 9:30, breakfast was done, and have check marks. And then we can see the bank, lunch, shopping, movie, exercise, and dinner activities that are have blank boxes indicating that they haven't been done yet. Then we have places for names and special keyboards for phone numbers, and the same thing for notes. And we also have a cue card, which is all about what's going on right now, free time until the bank, how long is remaining, and links to information to help get this activity accomplished. So when it's time for the cue, that was probably a little loud. When it's time for the cue, PEAT will automatically jump to the cue card, and on the handheld device, it will turn the device on, and if you were playing solitaire, it would pull PEAT on top of it. Oops, sorry, I didn't want to hit that. You know, so the person doesn't have to be concerned whether the device is on or whether they left it in the proper state to, you know, for it to happen. So it'll automatically come here. It'll play whatever sound was set up for that activity, which could be one of over 50 built-in sounds, or your own voice recording, or any other sound, a wave sound that you want to go out and get on the internet. You'll notice that it is a persistent cue. Right? It didn't just beep once or twice. It's going to continue beeping until we respond to the activity. In fact, it's not even going to let us go to other sections until we respond to the cue. Now, depending upon the wherewithal of the person, they might have the ability to use the wait button or to mark activities as either skipping that one or having already accomplished it. But once again, any button in PEAT can be turned off. So the user might be forced just to press the start button if they didn't have the wait button. I'm going to go ahead and start the bank activity, and now instead of continue bank, instead of free time until bank, it's now continue bank, right? And we have just under 10 minutes remaining, and our links again are here letting us be able to accomplish the activity, and maybe that's
Bank of America, 221 Main Street.
Could be a voice recording or other sound attached to a picture. And it could also be just notes where there, again, can be voice recordings there, or whatever information that might be needed. It could be a list of medications for, you know, when somebody has to take them. It can be what to bring to a speech appointment or something along those lines, you know, or things they might need to you know, to get a Department of Rehabilitation claim going, or things like that. Because again, you know, it's one thing to be cued to say, got to make this phone call, and it's another thing to be told, you know, here's what you actually need to be telling somebody, and to remind yourself about that. So now that the activity is going, we'll go back over to the calendar, and we can see that the bank activity actually has a flashing check mark in it. And again, we can see that there's just 3 minutes before the movie, after the shopping before the movie, and we will indeed see that delay at the bank, which will cause PEAT to automatically move it till after the movie. And briefly, I'll show you kind of about a little more about this floating task activity. Before I do that, I will point out that all the links that you saw in the cue card, and the cue card was all about the current or next activity, they are all about also in the calendar right next to the activity as it's listed on the calendar. Now, if we look at this lunch activity here, and again, going in, just like menu buttons can be hidden, you can prevent somebody from editing the task like I just did here. And even in the task editor, you'll notice that there are several lines with different properties. There's name, and then the date, and the start and stop time, how long it's really the start time and the deadline, and then there's the duration, cue button, start sound, stop sound, etc. From duration on down, you'll notice that the labels are all in bold. Any of those properties can also be hidden. So when somebody starts out, maybe they're not modifying their activities at all, and they just have to go through what's been set up for them for a few days or a week or whatever it is. And then when they start putting in their own activities, you might make it really simple for them, just the name and the date and the start time and stop time. And you can hide all the other properties and then introduce them as they're ready for it. We can see here that lunch we've set up as a 40-minute activity. The duration is 40 minutes, and it's in a 2-hour window from 12:30 to 2:30. And so just like the little demonstration that I did in the PowerPoint, right, this activity can kind of slide back and forth. It can, if there's nothing going on in its way, then it'll start at 12:30 and end at 1:10, 40 minutes later. But it could start as late as 1:50 and still get done by its 2:30 deadline. We see that the repeat property is set to daily, so it's going to repeat every day. And we also gave it a priority indicating how what its level of importance is. Now, if we look at today, lunch can't start right at 12:30 because the bank, a more important activity as defined by the user or the person who put the schedule in, is blocking lunch. So lunch can't start until 12:42, again, today in this little demonstration, which is Monday, January 8th. If we look at tomorrow, there's nothing in lunch's way, so it gets to start right at 12:30. And again, because we repeat it, it's just going to plan every day when lunch can happen. And if there comes a time when we plan something that will completely block lunch, it will let us know that lunch is getting canceled and won't be able to be accomplished that day. And then we would look at that and say, maybe we want to shift something else around so that we can eat lunch, or you know, maybe we'd have to go without lunch that day if you know, if that's just the way it has to be. And in fact, you know, maybe we have to fast because we're going to a doctor appointment later where we, you know, have to get some blood tests, and we're going to skip lunch altogether. So we can see that there's two different ways in which the floating tasks come into play. One is when you're actually doing the planning, right? So we can actually see that you know, that lunch is going to start late today because we know we're going to the bank, and that it'll start on time tomorrow. But also, when we go through our day, it may have to change and shift around, and I will show you that now. So the bank here goes until 12:41, right? And again, we can see that there's 3:23 remaining. And maybe you get a cue at the end of an activity, and maybe you don't. That's really, it's up to you as to what you'd want to put in there. Some activities, the person might just know when they're done and be able to do, you know, if it's lunch or something, get up and clear the dishes and go on about it once the activity's over. Or maybe it's an appointment where the doctor or speech pathologist or somebody might let you know that it's over. But other activities you might want to stop cue for, because either you have to do something at the end that you want to be reminded about, or it's an activity that you might perseverate on, like watching TV, or it's an activity that you don't know how long it's going to take, and it might affect other activities, such as this bank. Now, rather than wait the last 2.5 minutes, I'm going to use a button that is only available when you're in demonstration mode. And you would never turn this on for a person. This is the time warp button, and it's just a jump to the left, and it'll move the clock forward. So now it's 10 seconds before the bank, and we're going to see two things here. One is a stop cue, and another is a voice recording.
Are you done at the bank?
So hopefully everybody could hear that. It came up and said, "Are you done at the bank?" And because we actually asked for a button, it's going to continue to ask us if we're done at the bank until we respond to it. And by the way, if you just tap on the screen, it'll be quiet for 30 seconds. So then you can figure out what you might want to do about it. Here, we're going to wait. Now we're going to click on the wait button because we're not done at the bank. We're still standing online.
Are you done at the bank?
And in this mode right here, the wait button is set up like a snooze alarm, where this would be for a person who knew they needed more time but maybe couldn't estimate time very well. So it was always going to be for 15 minutes, and you could set that time to whatever you want. For other people, indeed most people, they would get a keyboard that said, how long do you want to wait? And you could choose 2 minutes, 5 minutes.
Are you done at the bank?
Notice here that I did not confirm how long I wanted to wait, and so after a little bit it went back to the queue. And I'm actually going to say I do want 15 more minutes. And so without any fanfare, PEAT gave me 15 more minutes. All the links that I need to complete the bank activity are still there. But when I go over here, we can see that because the bank is now running until 12:58, lunch after that runs until 1:38, which is not enough time to go shopping before the movie at 2, and instead is moved until after the movie. And indeed, exercise gets shrunk down from 4:35 to 5:30. There's 55 minutes there because the gym closes at 5:30. And we can actually look at this movie and see that it is indeed a 2-hour duration in a 2-hour window, right? And that makes sense. We're going to Century Theater, and they're not going to hold the movie because we're late, right? And we're meeting Susan. Right, and if we look over here, if we look over here on Susan's name card, we can even see that we owe her dinner. So we don't want to make her mad by being late for the movie. And PEAT has kept us on track. And in fact, you know, if we decided that, oh, you know what, today's the day we're supposed to fast. Whoops, we missed it for breakfast, but we better skip lunch now. And then we're going to say, okay, we're going to skip lunch. And then PEAT says, well, you know what? Now you've got plenty of time to go shopping. Because after the bank's over, we'll just get you going shopping, and you'll still have almost a half hour before the movie. And you got your full hour of exercise back because it's now not running up to the close of the gym. So PEAT is really looking out for you and will adjust whenever a change is made. You know, and so when these floating tasks are in play, it can be extraordinarily useful. One other thing before I turn it over for general questions here, and what I'm doing at the moment is I'm just running in and turning on a tools menu, and I'll show you just how easy it is to turn on and off buttons. This is in my tools menu part of setup, and the tools menu is down here at the bottom, and has some useful things that people can do, like check their power or see different text sizes. So here in the system, if I turn the size value from yes, no to yes, and I'm going to do the same with activity model here. As soon as I click on the tools menu, I now see the new options, size, and activity model. So it's really that easy to change the setup for an individual as you're moving through, you know, teaching them about PEAT, or they're moving through themselves in self-learning mode. So the text size, by the way, is, you know, you can move things up and make them bigger or smaller. And I wanted to talk, what I really wanted to talk about here was scripts. And scripts are just any activity broken down into its component parts so that you get cued through each piece of an activity. Because of the fact that PEAT is this toolbox and not just a one-trick pony, there are many ways that you can accomplish something. So potentially, one person might just need a cue that says, got to do laundry today. One person might even just need a to-do item that's on their list that says laundry at the top of the day. Right? Remember our to-do lists that are over here, say pay bills, read newspaper, right? Well, maybe, you come upon tomorrow and it just says laundry at the top of the day, and they can look at that and do it. Somebody else might just have a simple activity that cues them at 2 o'clock and says, hey, do laundry. And they can go about the whole process of doing laundry, including going back to the dryer and, and the whole bit. Somebody else might need a cue that is linked to a checklist, similar to, here's a shopping list where you can check things on and off that you need, but maybe it's a checklist that says, wash, dry, fold, right, or whatever you might need there. Other people would need actually to be cued through each piece of the activity, and so you could create a laundry script such as this, where each of these activities is its own PEAT task, right? And this, it's got this, here's wash clothes, that is going to take 35 minutes and can be done anytime between 5 a.m. and 11:30 p.m. Right? If we look at put clothes in dryer, right, it's got that same time window of 5 a.m. to 11:30 p.m., but the duration is only 3 minutes because you're just putting the clothes in the dryer. Right? Then dry clothes, again with the same duration, or same time window, and this duration is 30 minutes. They have a good dryer. My dryer takes a lot longer than that. But you get the picture, and you can create whatever you need, break an activity into whatever grain size is necessary for the individual, and for some people, it's not even severity of impairment, on the whole, as in some people can do it with just a checklist and some people need a script. For some people, it's good days and bad days. Especially people with stuff like MS and other degenerative diseases where you simply do have good days and bad days, and some days you might be able to just, hey, have the simple cue and be able to go through it all, and other days you might really need the script with all the links in it. But suffice it to say that we can build this script, and then we can add it to the calendar, and here I put it on my list of favorites, and we'll do it tomorrow. Maybe not right at 5 a.m., but how about at 2 p.m.? And we could make it repeat if we wanted to. And now when we look at tomorrow's schedule, we see at 2 o'clock not just simply laundry, but wash clothes, and then afterwards put clothes in dryer, followed by dry clothes, fold clothes, put clothes away as a script. Each of these activities could have its own links, such as, dryer sheets and amount of, detergent to put in, and anything that might be necessary, including voice recordings or other sounds for the individual. And, this is not every last little piece that PEAT can do, but it is a good portion of it, and we are currently working on, it runs on Microsoft Windows. It runs on Windows 6 devices. It's not actually the new Windows 7 devices that I believe just came out. But it's on the Windows 6 devices, and we are porting to Android. So shortly we should be running on Android. And right now the software, we sell software, and basically the the price of the software includes 5 hours of our consultation and training, and the software is $2,250. And then hardware, depending upon whether you get a non-phone or a phone, and oftentimes the phone's even cheaper if you get it with service and so forth. They can run anywhere from $100 to $500, and we have some that we sell as well. And then upgrades are free, and if you got, when we had the new Android, if you got moved over to an Android device, we would, put that over on there for free, and again, that comes with the 5 hours of training. And even after the 5 hours of training, if you have a question or a problem or an issue, ask. I am more than happy to help people out. We stand behind the product, and we want to see it be successful for people. So we don't get petty about that. We want to help people out, and we're also working on a model of selling PEAT like an app, especially since we are porting to Android, and we are very interested in what people think about something along the lines of $20 a month as an app, and so I would be very interested in what this group has to say about that versus purchasing the whole product outright and having a price set for something like that. So if there's any other questions, I am happy to entertain them. Okay, Steve, I think, has one. I'll shut my mic off and you can talk. Oh, okay, I see Steve has said in the chat, how long has PEAT been on the market? In various forms, PEAT has been on the market for about 12 years now. We started on the Magic Link, if anybody remembers that device, which was really the first kind of handheld computer, and then we moved through the different clamshell models and so forth until where we are today. Oh, and I should also mention that we are doing research, which is not going to be in the product for a few years to come, but things where PEAT will be is using sensors. Well, some of it will actually be in the product pretty soon, GPS, using GPS locations and mapping and so forth. But we're also doing research with sensors so that PEAT can figure out what you're doing and modify cues accordingly. And a few examples could be that, if you're supposed to be making breakfast at 8 o'clock, but at 7:40, PEAT can tell that you're making breakfast because of what you're doing in the house, then it doesn't need to cue you at 8 to make breakfast, and could potentially ask you if you are making breakfast now, or just go ahead and start automatically. And then likewise, if you were headed out of the house and didn't have your keys or your cane or something like that, it could cue and say, hey, go back and get these items. So that's, again, a little ways in the future, but it is stuff that we're doing right now. Okay, so David's chiming in and seems to like the price. What percentage of the people you guys see have their own smartphones? Like how ubiquitous is this? I'm in my own little world, and I kind of see it. But when I get down to the users, I find that sort of not that many have theirs. Is that any different from other people's? Well, okay, so Steve F., for any of those people who can't somehow see their chat box, is saying potential users might buy the Droid if they needed the app, and that's pretty much what we're seeing now. People don't have, you know, a Windows mobile device. Oh, yeah, we're done at the bank. Thanks. And now we're going to go shopping in a few seconds. Oh, okay, sorry, we're shopping now. Yes, so the price is definitely an issue, and with the, you know, what Katie is pointing out is, you know, probably has a lot to do with the fact that there's data plans required with the phones, and it's a fair expense to keep up. Now, what we've found in the past is, you know, and with our current pricing model and the way we're doing it, is that, you know, we acknowledge that it's expensive, and people acknowledge that it's expensive also. Most people seem to feel that it is valuable, and in terms of the value that it brings, it far exceeds the, you know, even potentially like $3,000 that people are putting out for it now. You know, I mean, if it just in terms of, you know, somebody being able to actually keep a job or get through school or do something on their own that a family member or caregiver had to do for them, I understand completely that that does not take care of the fact that if they don't have the money, they don't have the money. And we are certainly trying to figure out, you know, if this is going to be something that, you know, more insurance companies will pay for and so forth. And, you know, people like, you know, Kate and so forth. I'm not exactly sure what's up with Kate these days, if it's been refunded or not. But that's, you know, if even so, it's still somewhat more affordable, certainly in the short run, than paying out. Now, we do actually have currently a model set up where you can rent for $125 a month a PEAT on a device that's not a phone, but it is a pocket PC and has PEAT running on it. So there is that rental option there, but you know, that's $125. Hopefully this would be, you know, again at $20 a month. And yes, people do have to pay for this stuff, but I think there's even other stuff that, you know, that would come with phone usage. Although I believe there's even some we're also considering, and I believe we'll probably end up running on the tablets that are coming out as well. And those don't have phone, but they have data-only packages, and where you'd be able to, again, use the maps and other things that come with it and so forth. And Candace is pointing out that Kate is now part of the AT network under a different name, and have the same centers, I assume, because the buildings haven't changed, I'm sure, just the name, still have devices, and there's still alternative, or I say alternative financing program is still in the works with DOR. Well, the one other option that I can think of right now is in our current model, we do have available for the software, instead of being $2,250, is $500 for institutions that want to have one in-house for evaluative purposes, so that people could borrow it for a little bit and they would set it up for somebody and show it to them and see if it would work for them before going in for purchase. Also, under the current model, which again is the model that we're going to be under at least, say, for the next 6 months until we roll out like an Android app, is that if you have done one or work with somebody who has already been through the process, we offer lower pricing for lower hours of training. So once somebody's been through it, if they can show that they know how to do it and so forth, then there's a lower price available, potentially up to $600 or $650 less than the initial pricing. Great. Well, I appreciate everybody's time. Thanks very much.